Hello. Last video, what I did was go over how I classified the different erratas. Now, on this video, what I'm looking to do is my thought process and my workflow of what I would actually do if I worked for Weiss Schwarz, Bushy Road, whoever, to prevent these things from happening ever again. This video, just so you know, is not meant for everybody. My old boss would tell me, it made me laugh every time I heard it. She would say it on calls in front of people, whoever. But her saying, and it's a saying that people have used, is I don't need to know how the sausage is made. So basically, I didn't work for a card company. I worked for a different company. And I'm just going to use cards in this example. But my boss is only concerned with the end product, right? She only cared if we were a card company that she has a card that is of good quality and there's no glaring mistakes on the actual card, right? She didn't need to know that 20 people worked on it. It costed $300,000 to produce, that we use all kinds of Excel sheets and all that stuff to make this happen. She doesn't care. At the end of the day, she needs to know that this thing was delivered on time, on a set budget, and we have no issues. That's all she cared about. And again, what this video is, just so you could see what I'm talking about, is this is how the sausage is made, right? This is how I would actually go about doing it. If you don't care to see problem solving or my thought process on all of this, then you're not going to want to watch this video. If you want to see all of that, if you have any say on how to fix all of this, then definitely watch this video. Again, Bushy Road may be using something like this. I don't know. I never talked to a card company before. I have no freaking idea. I just know from my work experience on what we do, this is probably at least one solution on the problem we're seeing. And again, what's showing on the screen is this error that was errated in 2015, 2018, 2020, 2020. So you could see how errors repeat over and over again. So by my solution, what I have taken care of in my mind here is we take care of the repeat errors, we take care of the naming issues, we take care of the references to different cards like this. Like what's happening with this stuff right here with Excalibur, that would all be taken care of. What we're not going to take care of is more than likely the spelling issues, right? And I want to address that one more time. So the spelling issues, the typos, we are never going to be able to solve that. That is 100% human error. And people will say, well, you could have proofread it, you could have used a spell check. Not really, because ROM is a real word, right? Like that's a real word. There was one here about phases right here, right? That's phrase is a real word. And you could say you could hire people to proofread this, but in my head, there's no way you're still going to catch that, right? Because think back. Think back when you were in school. And I remember when I was in school, I had papers they hand in. You had, papers, or just, I guess nowadays it's online, right? You submit it online. But no matter what happened, your job back then was a student. You didn't have to, most people didn't have to work a job. Like when you write your employment status, you will see full-time student under there, which means your job is to go to school and produce paperwork and do well on tests. And I will say, like, I don't know anybody that's went through all of school that hadn't had one paper come back with some kind of grammatical error, spelling error, something like that, right? And you possibly could have handed it to somebody else to proofread, but in the end, it still always came back not perfect. And that's my point. We could hire people all day to look at this stuff. You could do it. But even then, people miss it. Like it happens, right? It might be their job to make sure this doesn't happen, but it still happens in the end. So I don't see how you will always, forever and ever, prevent that from happening. So that's why the issues that are going to be resolved from this are going to be your logic issues, your functionality issues. And with that said, I'm going to go into that right now. Okay, so what I have here is a matrix. There are two versions of the matrix right here. There's a text matrix and there is a card matrix. Again, this is your last chance to get out of this video before I go through all this because there's a lot of stuff. Okay, so what happens here is on my text matrix, what I did was I basically pulled all of this text right here off. I took that off. And let's just hide this for a minute. I know you already saw it, but let's just hide this. What we're left with is auto at the start of the climax phase. So you can see this whole one gets mapped to this cell. The next one, act brainstorm, gets mapped to this cell. Okay? And I did that with also our friend here, Katori. Right here. So we got her continuous ability. We got this auto climax combo. So there you go. All right, and if I unhide this, as you saw before, this is what we would actually be left with. This, if I had to make a matrix today for Bushy Road, this is what I would do. I would take all of these codes here. I would take all these texts and assign them a code. The code is going to be based off, the text itself. So you see auto, act, continuous. So as you see here, auto 1, act 1, continuous 1. So this would be what I would name them because this is the start of our thing. As you see, I kept going with the numbering system, right? So continuous here, so that's why that gets a 2. So what happens here is you're building an actual database of all the different codes, all the different text lines. And what I'm doing then is we're going to be saying which card is using this text, right? So right here we have this Frenzy Nightmare Kurumi, but this card also has a SP along with it. That's going to use the same actual text, which makes sense because it's just the SP version, right? And finally, what I did was I took this card and made it generic. So what you can see here is on this card, they have traits, right? The date or elemental trait. What I did here was generically change it to trait or trait. That way, let's say another set comes along. Let's say Ruby. It's probably going to be like this. RBY, that looks like Ruby, right? Ruby W, I don't know what set number this would be. This is like 85001. Let's just say that. Right? So for Ruby, I'm just going to say the trait is, I don't know what the trait would be. Let's just say Ruby. Ruby. These traits are definitely not right. JNPR. All right. So let's say this card, if you have, you could search for a Ruby or Juniper character and then put it onto the field. Actually, what did it say? Search your library for one Ruby or your Juniper character, show it to your opponent, put it into your hand. Right? So you get the idea. By leaving these things blank as blank traits, you're able to fill in this and reuse it. So basically the whole process flow of this would be, this card is made in Japan first. You have the Japanese version of the text. You then immediately put it on a matrix, and on this is the English version of the matrix. You would then have a meeting to agree on the actual translation. You need what we always call as sign-off. You need an actual sign-off between the different teams that, hey, I am taking your Japanese text here. I know this is English, but Japanese text here. I am translating it into English. I'm going to go over with you how I think this actually reads. Once there's sign off on that actual card, that the text itself, then that is forever a 100% completed, translated card without any issues. From there, in the future, if that Japanese text gets reused, we will be able to add the card code on here and apply this English translation and then fill in the traits that go with it. You see it? So there will never be a point where you actually have a misprint, right? A mistranslation, because you already have this signed off from a long, long time ago. Okay? The only time that's actually wrong is if that sign off didn't happen, or that sign off the person just didn't care and they just signed off without actually looking. That does happen. It does happen, unfortunately. Okay, so there we go. That's how this whole sheet is actually being used. And again, my point with that is, if you are catching the drift of what's happening here, these repeat errors that you saw, this matrix solves a couple of things, right? First off, we know, again, like I said, 100% signed off, so you shouldn't have any issues. If there were to be an actual issue, like I just said, we would know each card that it was attached to, right? So let's just say this errata happened in 2020, like all 4 of these cards were in 2020, then we'll be able to, because with this catalog you're able to say, oh crap, we broke 4 cards, so you can errata them all at the same time. If they had a catalog and you were doing it, this is why I said I don't know if there's an actual catalog, because you see in 2015 this happened, then it continued happening in 2018, then it continued happening in 2020, right? So if they were just over time, like I said, if I added the Ruby card here, if I had Ruby here, then we would have had the right card all this time. We would have had the right text all this time. So that takes care of the repeat issues. Right here. So next thing I'm going to take a look at is, we're going to take a look at this actual card matrix itself. Right? So what I did here was I took a look at the card and I broke it down to pieces. So this text matrix only took this box into consideration, right? Just to create this general sheet. What this card matrix starts to do is we are breaking down the individual cards. So again, if there was no such thing as this card matrix or text matrix on their side, they're going to have to catalog this whole thing. It's going to be not a fun time, right? It's not gonna be fun time. It's tedious. It's super tedious. I've had to do this before for my job, and it's a lot of work, right? You're gonna be sitting here a really, really long time. Especially, again, if this doesn't exist, how many sets they would have to go to, right? Data Live is number 79. I didn't actually look or count myself, but if that number is right with 79, that's a lot of sets they're gonna have to go through, right? So, okay, what I did here was I took the card itself, and as you can see, here's card number, card name. I basically took all of the actual different components. There it is. That's the right word. Components of this card, and threw it on here for the most part. I'm pretty sure I got the majority of it. I'm not doing this for a living, so I didn't make sure I got everything. But as you can see here, we got this broken out, and the more important part, that whole text matrix that I have, you can see it right here. So highlighted the wrong one. All right, text code 1, 2, and 3. As you can see, this is Frenzied Nightmare Kurumi, and what we're doing here is we are tagging it with Auto 1 Act 1. And going back here, so Auto 1 Act 1, our serial numbers are in here. Great. We got our SP, we got our regular double R. That's a double R, right? Yeah. Frenzy Karumi. Yeah, she's a double R. Double R. That's what I thought. Okay, so she is a double R. Again, there's an SP version. I didn't write these all down because there's no reason for me to do that. I don't work for Bushy Road. I don't got to make all these things. So, as you can see, I tagged them back, these cards back to their codes. And then I also went one more further and I did bring two friends. There we go. I did our friend Terrible Spirit Karumi, our double R, and again, she has an secret version. So, Terrible Spirit Karumi here, double R. Again, we have different text codes. And if you notice, I do them in order too, right? How I want them to appear. So text code 1 isn't just random, right? I'm not going to just put auto 6 here. I'm going to put continuous 2, auto 6, auto 7. And if I take a look back, continuous 2, auto 6, auto 7 is over here, so they map back perfectly. And then we also have the serial numbers as well. So there we are. The next thing I wanted to do with this sheet was, if you're wondering why these are highlighted in red, there's a reason for that. So if you take a look at the card numbers themselves, I made this up because this made the most sense. I did Terrible Spirit Karumi, I gave it the same name, and we have Data Bullet over here. Right, so I made up a fake Data Bullet card, number 999, made it in common blue, 1 soul, and what did I give it? I gave it a, let's give it a power level 2-1, right? We're making it a 2-1 uncommon blue. And the whole reason for this is we had naming issues, right? we had some naming issues. It's not going to happen all the time, but just to prove how like this could be used, you have Excalibur, you have Excalibur Morgan, Excalibur, and all of that. I know this wasn't going to happen the same way, but my point is, if you ever do run into a situation where there is a duplicate, you have Excel to be able to figure out which cards are duplicates. So this is an actual rule inside of Excel, just to check. This is conditional formatting, this duplicate. So if you were to happen to write in the same name, then this thing will trigger and turn it to red. So this sheet, this card matrix, even though it seems crazy, can actually hold all of the sets. It's going to be super huge. This Excel file is going to be super huge going down the different rows. It's going to be super huge going right. I've had personally at work, I've had work spreadsheets that went all the way out into the C's, right? Like you'd have to keep going over and over and over, which I never thought I'd see the day when I do that, but it does happen at work. So right there, we take care of our naming issues. And the other thing I want to point out here is we have a reference. I have reference by another card. So again, we have these things where you have climax combos, right? Here we go. We have climax combos, this one, climax comboed with Excalibur Morgan and Excalibur and whatever else it needs to be. But the whole point of that is, the reason why I made explicitly added this column is for the fact that if there are any issues, we need to know, again, we need to cross-reference. If there is some sort of naming issue, we want to check back to see if this is affected. We don't want to find out later on, as in March 17, 2021, and then on July 16, 2021, that there are some sort of issues. So we want to know right away that there are issues and which cards are actually affected by it or not affected. You may check back and you know what, there's no problem. But at the same time, then you're covered. Right? We need to make sure of that. So here is the actual easy view, card view, I guess. I did this because normally in these kind of spreadsheets, like I said, you'd be going left to right. On this card view, just so it's easier for you all to see, I'm just going to put it here. And I just transpose this. So again, it's nice to see it this way, like a card broken. I actually like it a lot better, but you can only imagine how many rows this is going to take. But you could see this a lot easier. We got our text codes again, and there. So hopefully that gives you an idea of what we're going for here. We need to break down the cards, and by using this text code system, we'll be able to map out what this box should easily say. Okay? And in doing so, we will have 100% translated actual text and all the cards that use them in the future. We know cards use the same text over and over again. And what we need to do here is ensure that if we are going to use it, that we don't have a multiplying snowballing problem. So the bad part about that is you need to make one of these rows for every time there's a change. So I have here the cowgirl. Where is she? Cowgirl card. Here she is. We got cowgirl, an ordinary piece cowgirl, and we got confrontation with humans Toka. This isn't the perfect example, but I'm just going to use this as an example. So I'm going to zoom in on this, so bear with me. All right, as you see, if you take a look at these two cards, we got 0, 0, no flavor text. That one just says cowgirl for some reason. I know she's the cowgirl, but I don't know why Toka doesn't got anything. I feel like she got left out. But you could basically look across back and forth, and this is the same type of card, right? 1500. There's only one difference. The one difference is you don't have a second trait here. This is order, where this is date and celestial spirit. And truthfully, these cards then would be different, as in put one order character. This one's put one date or celestial spirit. For the purposes of this example and me not having to work even more, I am not going to do that. So basically what I did here was right here. So what I did was I mapped them all the same. I said discard a character with trait or trait. In reality, what I should have done was made a second line and just had the one trait, because this is giving the impression that this is the 2 version trait card, where this is the 1 version trait card. But you get the idea. You want to put the different cards down here that have the same ones, so that in the future you could keep reusing these over and over again, and if you do, avoid any mistakes. There we are. So it's pretty awesome, but it's very time consuming. For me personally, I think if Bushiroad goes this way, it's going to lead to better quality. Again, it's going to take a lot of effort if this doesn't actually exist. I hope to God it exists, and what truthfully happened is it's not as robust or complete as of a process as it should have been all this time, right? Some of these were just blatant out mistakes, right? Like the misspellings and all that good stuff. This name, I don't know what you do with that, but truly, these aren't all bad. It's all bad. In the end, after looking at all this, I worked on so many projects in my life, and I could tell you the first 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 projects, I tried to get perfect every time, to the point where I beat myself up over it. Like I would work day and night. Like I would stay up, do all kinds of crazy hours, rereading, and rereading, and then you get that first production issue. And you're like, geez, I did all that work I put in, and you know what? People will come back and tell you. Every time they came back and told me that, you know, you're never gonna get it right. Again, you need to figure out what went wrong, do that root cause analysis, make some lessons learned out of it, and then go from there. I think with what truly happened here is there's a rushing of actual cards. Like when we think about the release schedule again, let me bring that up. Schedule. There it is. Okay. When we think about this release schedule, if you take a look at it again, it's pretty aggressive, right? So this is, yeah, here it is. This is our new schedule. So back then was, you would see it. They're pumping stuff out every month. Can you imagine that? They're pumping it out every month. This is an excuse, but I know from me working my corporate job is anytime I rushed through any project that I've had, anytime I did any sort of work that I rushed through, it always came back wrong. Always, no matter what. And when I take a look at these different errors, to me, there's a whole lot of rushing going on. So truly, Pushy Road may never talk to me, but if I had to take a couple guesses at it, this is what I'm seeing. This is stuff that I've seen in my company time and time again, and this is what I'm seeing here. There's not many, there's not much difference. All companies are basically the same. You're just doing different. We have the same processes, we have the same errors. We're just selling different things. And what I'm seeing is exactly what I'm seeing all this time. So it's actually my boss wrote me 2 days ago, my old boss, and she said happy 13th. I made it 13 years in my company. Oh man, can't wait to retire. Anyways, I think that's everything. Let me just review here. We took care of repeat errors, naming issues, references to different cards, and there we are. So hopefully this helps. If anybody else got any other solutions to this problem, please write it down below. And hopefully we get some better quality cards. So take it easy on them. I know there's a lot of work that they do try with limited resources. It's unfortunate, but mistakes happen.